are listening to On the Verge on WTVU. BU's only music and talk show, bringing you the latest in campus life, entertainment news, and trending topics worldwide, with stories from Verge campus and new music from Good Music All Day. Everything you want to hear,
minus what you don't.
Every Sunday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m.
Really hyped for our featured artist of the week segment. We have Una Angel in the house, everybody.
Hi.
Una.
Hey.
So, Una, why don't you give yourself a little introduction for our listeners who might not know you?
Sure. So, my name is Una, and I'm a singer. I'm also a songwriter, and I play piano. I'm from Durham, North Carolina, and I've been writing for a really long time, and I'm excited because I've just released my first EP. So
Yay!
Good stuff.
Very exciting.
And tell us, what are you studying? You know, you're a student here at BU, so.
yeah, so I'm studying public relations in comm, and
Love comm. Why are all of our guests always in comm? I swear I don't do it on purpose.
You guys are just too cool.
We are. We're the best.
Yes, we
You're the
are.
coolest. Can't deny it.
And what year are you?
I'm a sophomore.
Oh, me too. Yeah, so why don't you tell us, because you just mentioned your EP, what's your genre? How would you describe your music?
Sure. So I would describe my music as urban pop because my songs could pretty easily be pop songs, on a pop chart.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of R&B and jazz influences because that's the music that inspired me. So definitely has that kind of urban edge to it, even though it's R&B, and my vocals are more like R&B jazz vocals than process pop vocals. So
Very cool. So did you grow up listening to jazz and stuff, or have training in that? What's the influence?
yeah, I grew up listening to a lot of jazz thanks to my parents who just played it around the house. Even though they're not musicians, they would put on CDs and records and all the classic jazz, Ella Fitzgerald, Stan Getz.
Yeah, awesome.
Miles Davis, just all those, Oscar Peterson, so many. And so I feel like the soul of that music really helped to inspire me when I was little. And when I started writing music, it definitely came into what I was doing, those influences.
That's really cool. I feel like not a lot of artists nowadays, or people who want to be pop artists, really get influences from older genres like that. So that's really cool, an interesting change. Though we talked with Jean-Luc about this, I feel like pop is such a broad term now.
It's popular music. Not
Yes.
to be your auto
Bubblegum.
all the time. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely, which I think is awesome because there's so much more room for different types of artists like yourself.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I remember you mentioning to me you're also very much inspired by people like Bryson Tiller and everything
Yeah.
like that.
I love Bryson.
I love him.
Yeah, and it's tempting to just say my music is R&B, but I guess I shy away from that, and I like using just urban pop because it allows me to, it just gives me a little bit more room, because as soon as people hear R&B, they think of maybe a more specific,
More
narrow.
like a John Legend than
Yeah.
so
So yeah, it kind of keeps that open, but
Yeah, definitely. I like urban too.
in this stage, I'm just trying to stay versatile and create a lot of different sounds while still my voice has a unique sound, so that will always be on the track. And I have definitely have my own style when I write, but at the same time, I don't want to close myself into one genre. So.
Right. So you obviously sing, and you mentioned that you do keyboarding. So do you have other people who I don't know, work with you too? And do you ever work with other singers or other musicians?
Yeah, often. There's nothing better than collaborating with other musicians or producers or rappers. Pretty much with any creative person, even artists. You never know. An artist might have an idea for a visual design, and it can inspire a song. I've had that happen. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
But specifically, I collaborate frequently with rappers. I'm working on a couple tracks right now that I look forward to releasing in a few weeks. But there are a couple Boston-based rappers.
That's so exciting.
And then, as well as that, I like to collaborate with jazz musicians because, again, they can improvise a lot better than I. And so I'll work with, back home, I worked with a jazz guitarist over the summer. We did a cover of Juke Jam, which right now has the most plays on SoundCloud of anything. So I think that kind of collaboration I love it because you get a lot of inspiration from the other musician, but also just because it frees you up a little bit more as a vocalist to kind of step away from the keys and just sing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So
love collaboration. We always talk about that. I think it's super important. And for your EP, did you have a consistent producer? Did you work with a lot of different producers on your songs?
Yeah, this EP is definitely a collection. A couple of the songs are just me and the keys, and then the other 2 songs, the single is produced by Dad Jeans, who...
What a great name.
I love that.
Be hip-hop, everyone, so...
Yeah, he just graduated last year.
Nice.
But he's doing his own solo thing right now. He's super talented, but he produced that, and Carl Taylor at this little studio in Durham, he mixed it. And then Chance was produced by Andrew Halleck.
He's another BU student,
MVC,
right?
Yeah. Love him. And I work with him frequently, so yeah, we're tight. But those 2, and then I think the rest are just me and keys.
That's awesome. I love how BU's music community is really growing, because I feel like obviously people, they think Boston and student artists, they'll be like, oh, Berkeley, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
But I feel like people fail to recognize that BU has some great musicians, and we're really growing in terms of student organizations. I know you're involved at the Music Business Club too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She is.
And our girl DJ Looney Tunes is at the top. So what has that been like, having this? It's basically, for anyone who doesn't know, kind of like a student, almost like a management type agency. Is that how you would describe it?
Yeah, it's like a music management agency. We have 3 event artist committees, and they each manage a particular artist that they all like to choose and everything like that, to help them out with website development, social media, outreach, collaborations, finding people to collab with. And then we have our events committee, who are people who create the gigs and actually put on the events for our artists to be able to showcase their work and everything. So
Cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how did you get involved with that?
I got involved last year. I met Nilu, and I knew that as an artist it was something that I was interested in, but also as someone who is majoring in PR and interested in the marketing side of things too. So last year I worked on marketing, and I loved it, and kind of got to know everyone, got comfortable with everyone, which was really important.
Definitely.
And then this summer actually, I applied to be on the artist roster, and I love it. It's incredible. The support is amazing. Everyone is so professional. It feels, you wouldn't know you're working with students. Everyone is a young professional. Everyone cares a lot, puts a lot of thought and effort behind the events, and it's been just wonderful for not just networking, but just continuing to grow and build as an artist.
Honestly, I didn't tell her to say all that, but thank you.
No.
It seems just from a third-party perspective, such a great organization, and it's really cool how you not only have or showing off our student artists at BU and being hey, we have them too, but also the other side of the music industry. I feel there's often not a lot of opportunities for kids who want to get into specifically entertainment management or that type of marketing, that type of PR. So I think that's really cool that we have that. And I know I went to your event a couple weeks ago for Music Business Club, and you were one of the artists that performed.
Yeah.
So what was that like? Have you done a performance like on campus yet, or was that kind of like your debut at BU?
Yeah, I have done other performances on campus. They've all been small, kind of similar in nature. But back home this summer, I did a lot more performing, so.
Very cool. Like at what type of venues and stuff?
Bars and, yeah, a lot of like late night bar open mic type events where you could get up and do like 3 songs rather than just doing one. And
right.
Some of them, like you had to get permission to perform. So they made sure that everyone there was a dedicated artist. But the other thing was at the end of the summer, I did like my first debut. I would say it's like my debut gig. So I had my own night.
That's awesome.
My own show. And it went really smooth. So kind of going from there, I'd like to be able to do that kind of thing in Boston, hopefully in the spring.
Yeah.
'Cause it takes a little while to book.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. I was about to say, like, what were the challenges like of getting a gig? Like, what was the process, I guess?
A lot of it is your connections and networking and walking up to people at venues who've seen you perform and know that you're good and, you know, they're with it. So then when you go up to them and you kind of ask them, they're not too concerned with, like, the money side of things. Because booking a venue can be really expensive if you don't have a booking agent or.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So I guess going off of that, since you're a student, you're a sophomore, I think most of the other student artists we've spoken to were like seniors, so they're like a little more experienced. But what has it been like, you know, being only in your second year at BU and like balancing that side of your life, but then also like figuring out all these new parts of like being an artist that you've never done before?
That work-life balance.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it definitely gets overwhelming, but it's so worth it. I frequently say this, that because my schedule is so tight, when I get to work on music, I'm like so hungry and so ready to work.
Yeah.
That I feel often I'll get to the keyboard, say on like a Thursday evening, and it's just been such a long week, and I just get really emotional, and then I just write something amazing, or I think it's amazing, but in that moment, you know how that is, you play it the next day and kind of, was that good or not? That's a test. You have to, like, when you work on a song, you're putting so many hours and you have to like put it away and come back the next morning. But yeah, so even though it can get hectic, I think it's definitely worth it. But yeah, it's a lot to balance. Like I think it's not easy, but
yeah.
Nice.
And what kind of pursued you to, like, there are a lot of people who just like music and maybe growing up playing an instrument or singing. That's like a hobby for them, but not everyone really pursues it and takes it seriously. So when did you kind of decide that you wanted to really become a serious artist, and what was like your influence?
That's a good question. I think in middle school, which I was still pretty young, but I had this experience where I had been singing, performing for a long time, just informally. And I knew that I liked to get in front of people and sing. But when I was in 6th grade, actually, I feel like this one performance was like that pivotal moment that since that moment, I knew like this is what I want to do as a career, like regardless of what other, the road that I have to take to get there. But it was a show, and it was a packed middle school auditorium, and I sang an Indie Ari song. I don't know if you... Yeah, so I sang There's Hope by Indie Ari, and my backing track didn't work, and I just counted off, and I just went, and I had the whole place stand up, and just this little 6th grader. Like, the whole place got up and like was jamming with me, like vibing with it, and I feel like even though that was in middle school, that was that feeling of being able to get up there and like share that emotion and feel that energy in the room, like I knew that I wanted to do that as a career. And so even then I was writing songs, but once I got to about 8th grade, I was writing songs that I realized like, oh, these songs are actually they're completed like works that I can put online, and I can like people will enjoy them. So that's when I started to really realize not only do I want to be a performer, but I want to keep pursuing songwriting. So
yeah. Wow, that's so impressive that at 6th grade you already kind of knew.
I know.
That's
it like
what
gives you
wanna
the confidence when you're little and people enjoy what you're doing. You're like, yes, I want that feeling again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good for you.
So then I'm assuming that you were really into your music when you got to high school and stuff too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all through high school I worked at it a lot. I also was I was a choir kid, so I sang just all the time. But I think that helped me. There's nothing also like the energy in like an a cappella group or a choir. I love to sing, so I'll always take an opportunity to sing, even if it's not solo.
Absolutely. Did you consider joining any of those groups when you got to college, or?
I did, yes. I was in Terps for a little while, and I love them. They're incredible, an incredible group of singers, but I couldn't, it became too much to balance between work and my solo work, and those rehearsals just became too much. But.
Yeah, definitely. I can see that being a big commit. That's a acapella group, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I find acapella to be so fascinating, maybe because I really like Pitch Perfect. I don't know.
Very sorority life, like
yeah,
or even fraternity life to the boys out there. But like, yeah, it's very. I love it. I think that's really cool that they're so dedicated, but they do meet on a very regular basis.
I know, they're like little fams. It's so cute.
5-hour rehearsals.
Oh my gosh.
It was mad real.
I was going to say, like, what is practicing like? I want to know when they go to do a song and they have to come up with, like, all of those, like, little sounds. Like, where do you start?
Yeah.
What is that process like? Like, did you ever do any of those, like, background type things, or were you mainly a singer?
Some groups are... Yeah, I mainly did the background stuff because I wasn't one of their solo leader singers. But I will say that a lot of times, like, a cappella arrangers can make a ton of money because they'll make an arrangement that's sung by the college groups across the nation.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And so all those little sounds are usually done by arrangers. Now, there are groups who, like, do their own arrangements, which there are benefits to both, but...
Oh my gosh, I didn't even know
That's
that
intense.
was a job, a cappella arranger.
Yeah.
That is really interesting.
I do know, like, you guys download scripts that are, like, the actual compositions with the already arranged
Exactly.
and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Oh, this makes so much sense to me. I was like, how are people thinking of this stuff?
So funny.
That's really cool. So do you feel like you made a lot of, like, connections, maybe not necessarily just through doing a cappella or just, like, being in BU in general? Well, we talked about the music business club, but, like, what do you think have been the pros to college life in terms of continuing to grow your career?
There are actually a lot of pros. One of them was last year I got involved in, pretty much right after I came on campus, got involved with BU Hip Hop, and you'd be surprised just how many of the producers, rappers that I work with have been involved in that over time, because it's had its own peaks and valleys and kind of as a club. But the thing is that a lot of those, because they make mixtapes, like, a lot of the people involved are producers too, and they know people. So that was one organization that helped me a lot. And also, I think just living and just experiencing as much as possible always contributes, especially as a writer. If I were... I don't know, I can't see myself in any situation where I was just idle, but if I were idle, I wouldn't be able to write, I wouldn't have, like, those relationships or anything to inspire what I'm doing, so...
Yeah, for sure. I was about to say, since, like, we've had other artists who do writing, but I feel like you're really focused on your songwriting. So like you kind of just touched on it, but kind of how does your writing process happen? Like, do you just have like a random idea and you go and you sit down, or is it like a lengthy thing?
Lyric first, then music first. Then
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a mess. It's like a beautiful mess. So it can happen in all different orders. Like, I don't have like a methodical process.
More impulsive.
Which I think is good for me because I'm a very methodical person. Like, most other aspects of my life, I have like on the grid, but I think songwriting,
super planned out.
Yeah, songwriting for
that.
me is like that area that it just, because it's emotional now. When it comes to like, so to answer your question, I'll sometimes write the lyrics first, like just the lyrics, and then I'll add a melody to that, and then I'll go to the keys and I'll add chords. And sometimes at that point I can either turn it into like an acoustic song, or I can send the song structure and the chords to a producer and have them make a beat for it, and then we'll kind of work from there. But other than that, sometimes I'll get the chord progression first, and one thing I love to do is like write a progression and then just riff a bunch of vocals over it until I get that like perfect fit, which is so satisfying. You get that like perfect hook to fit over the chords, and then you kind of work from there. But when I say I write all the time, I truly do. I write like on the T on my phone, lyrics, and just in
Very
class.
dedicated. That's awesome.
So yeah.
Awesome. So that being said, you mentioned earlier like you did a cover with someone else from like BU, right? Or
Yeah, I did the cover over the summer with the guitarist from UNC Chapel Hill, actually, in
That's
North
right.
Carolina. But
That's right. My bad.
Yeah, it's okay.
But I was gonna say, do you like doing covers a lot too, or is that like something that you don't do as often?
I don't do it as often, but I really enjoy it, and I think, especially when it comes to like interpreting the song. For instance, with the Juke Jam cover, I had my own experience that I was able to take and put into that song, and then kind of create like the girl's perspective.
Oh, cool.
And he has so many lines in there that are just, I love them, and so I felt by doing that cover, I kind of made it my own. But it's fun to think that someone else wrote that, and then you can connect with it. Like, I would hope that I would write songs that people would then want to cover.
Yeah, definitely. That's cool that you
yeah.
think about like the personal interpretation, because I feel like, especially once YouTube got really big, so many people who wanted to become famous started doing covers, and it's almost like an oversaturation of cover artists. And it's kind of hard to distinguish yourself. And on SoundCloud too. Side note, don't you hate when you like go to look up a song and then you click it and you're like, I found it, and then it's like some random person doing a cover, and it's sometimes like not even that song. I hate when that happens. But I think that's like really important that you put your own kind of twist on it, because if not, if everyone's doing a bunch of covers of Juke Jam, like how are you going to get people to listen to yours? So I think that's really cool that you like personalize it.
Yeah, we put like a neo soul twist on it, and just made it acoustic. So
we'll have to hear it.
Yeah.
Or just kind of going off of that in terms of like personalization, what do you think your brand is as an artist, and how are you growing that?
Sure. So really my brand is kind of
I know it's a hard question.
Yeah. It's a balance between classic and urban, so being like the idea in the angel part of my name really is that idea that like it's sweet, but it has an edge to it, and I think that comes through like my lyrics, the sound of my music. My vocals are like can be sweet, but then they can definitely have that edge, or like my lower vocals are gonna be more like more sultry, like a little bit less sweet and more. So I think that that's part of my brand. Yeah.
And that's something we've worked with her on for MBC a lot too, trying to define that
Yes.
brand. That's like one of the things we usually, when we do these like NBC like interviews with the artists that we want to bring on for the semester, we always try to make sure they know what they want from us and can we provide that for them. So the 3 artists that we have this semester, a lot of them either were trying to build a brand and identity, or they're rebranding and like trying to find a new identity. So Una was already like had that idea, but she wanted to really like define it and like solidify it. And I think that she's come to a good point now, and we're really happy about it.
Yeah, no, I can only imagine how challenging that can be, especially like what we were talking about earlier when it comes to just distinguishing yourself from all of the other people who want to make it out there. I think brand is super important, but also probably the hardest.
Especially today. I feel like all artists are doing that. Like, you've got Kanye, who's quite literally, he's a brand.
He is a brand.
A walking brand. And so like, you've got
so
artists
true.
who do that now, and like the pop-up shops and all that. So
Isn't it crazy how big that's gotten?
We should have an Una Angel pop-up shop.
You should.
Totally. I mean, I want to do with NBC and maybe collab with BU Hip Hop and Verge.
You should. All the different artists should have like little merch.
Like, you should do like a spring festival.
Yeah,
and,
I like
it. So
that would be very cool. Especially since like your visuals or your graphics on all of your SoundCloud posts are cool. You could definitely turn.
Yeah. Shout out to you, James.
Yeah, you're awesome. He also designed our new Verge logo, and it's sick.
Which you're gonna see later
on the Verge. So yeah, I feel like you could turn that stuff into really cool merch. That would be awesome. And I can only imagine it probably helps studying PR, right? And kind of applying that stuff. Like, why did you choose to study that?
Yeah, I chose it because of the fact that it goes hand in hand, and also because I can't work in any other industry than music. So if it's one of those fields that I can work in music, and I can also apply what I'm learning to music. And I think the number one thing in PR that every lecture comes back to is like thinking of your audience, like how they're perceiving you and what they want. And it's not about the communicator so much as the people that you're communicating to. And so it's the same way in songwriting, and it's like pretty interconnected.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's true.
I wondered, does that ever get kind of like hard that you're literally always have to think about? Because I feel like you grow up and your parents are like, don't worry about what anybody thinks.
Yeah.
And then you decide to be like an artist, and then it's like, worry about everything that people think, because that's kind of how you build yourself. So can that ever get like frustrating?
Not too much. I think it's not frustrating in the songwriting realm or the covers. When it comes to performing and the music side of things, honestly, unless you're writing 7-minute songs that have some crazy weird sound that you're not commercially viable at all, and you have a niche audience, yes, but in that case you have to think like, where's my niche audience? But I think as someone who wants to create something that's the audience is a little bit broader, I don't worry too much when I write. I worry about like getting the emotion into the song, like writing something that people can connect with. I don't worry so much about, oh, how are people gonna perceive this? I mean, you think about it, but when you write, you have to just do it kind of naturally.
Right.
Yeah. Staying true to yourself, for sure, and just hoping people will respond positively.
Yeah, I hope that
I
makes
think
sense.
Halsey really touched upon this when I was at that Forbes event and everything. She spoke about art and the musician. I actually talked to you about this, Una, when she mentioned how it's really hard being a musician, because even Halsey, she was voted for the 30 under 30, but it's interesting to think that people still don't perceive her as a professional in the field, and how she said something really hard to go about when you're talking to someone and they're like, oh, what do your parents think of you being a musician? It's like, well, I'm a professional, and I actually do, like, I produce something for you, and the product is me. I'm your product.
Yes.
And, like,
that's a good way to
you're
put
getting
it.
targeted all the time as the human product.
Right.
And, like, she's like, and it's hard sometimes when your product is actually something that can get sick. It's something that can get tired. It's something that actually, like, you have to like give emotional attention to once in a while.
Or in Una's case, a student.
Yes,
balancing
exactly.
so many other things.
So yeah, I definitely can see how that can be a hard thing. But
Yeah, and I feel like there's kind of this irony, because there are a lot of famous musicians right now who are super young, like bringing back the Beebs.
Oh no.
Still upset at you, but it's fine. He started off pretty young, but then if you're like a teenager and you're trying to make it in music, people are like, oh, that's so ridiculous. But like, look at the big pop artists most of the time are really young people. So do you ever feel like sometimes people are like, oh, you're just, what are you, like 19, 20?
Yeah, I'm 19.
Yeah. Are people ever just like, oh, you're like just 19, you're in college, like you're not gonna make it in music yet? Like, do you ever feel like you kind of don't receive as much I don't know, respect?
I would say no. I think there's an advantage to just being comfortable with where you are. Like, I'm 19 now. I'll be 20 in a year. I think, like, for me, there's definitely a sense of urgency where I feel like every hour that I put in, like, I'm getting ahead of someone who's not putting in that hour.
That's a great way to look at it.
And so for me, the urgency is, like, I stay calm, but I have the urgency because why sit around and say, oh, I probably won't make it until I'm 25, so I'm going to maybe not write that song tonight.
Let me just wait.
Yeah, maybe not push that extra hour to get these vocals that, but instead I'm like, I'm going to have the urgency and push so that we'll see, we'll see how soon. But I think it's about being comfortable with where you are. No, I haven't felt thankfully, like a lot of people who've told me, oh, you have time. My mom, she's the one that will tell me, you're such a baby. But
as parents will.
Yeah. But I always say, like, just do what you can in the moment, because that's what you've got. So
yeah, for sure. The time I think is definitely now more than later, especially like you touched upon, just the experiences that you're having in college can just like really influence you, and you can make a great product out of it.
Shapes your music for sure. That's
absolutely.
A drama.
And I think anyone who would talking to you now, like, it's clear that you're super driven, and I think most of the time, like, that's such an advantage, like you said, if you're putting in work that other people aren't. So I see good things coming in your future.
You go, girl.
You should listen to her mixtape. It's on SoundCloud, and you can also check out her new music video as well.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And before we play some of your music and finish this off, we need you to fill in the blank.
Yes.
So hashtag on the verge of blank.
Warned you about this.
Nilu, you can't let them think about it ahead of time.
It's struggling even when you're like,
It's true.
Nilu. I spent all week thinking about this, and
sometimes it's just like
just impulse.
Instinct. Yeah, impulse.
Making great music.
Breaking the top 40.
Ooh. I like the ambition, and I'm using that with a positive connotation, because I hate when people are like, oh, and being ambitious is bad. No, being ambitious is not bad.
Okay.
Look
That's
at
like
Una over
specific.
here. On the verge of breaking the top 40.
Let's do it.
Bam. We are going to play some of your music.
Yes.
So people know. These are the songs that you should expect in the top 40 coming up. So first we'll play Tiger. This has been our exclusive interview with Una Angel, everybody.
Thank you.
Woo! Thank you.
Maybach music. Love.